On the glittering streets of Los Angeles, where power, passion, and betrayal collide daily in the world of the bold and the beautiful, a shocking decision sends emotional shockwaves through the Spencer, Forrester, and extended family circles when Will Spencer makes the most life-altering choice of his young life. What began as a complicated love triangle between Will, ambitious and sharp-witted Electra, and quietly resilient Dylan explodes into a full-blown war of the heart the moment Dylan reveals she is pregnant. The revelation comes on an otherwise ordinary afternoon at the Cliff House, when Dylan, trembling but determined, asks Will to meet her privately. Her voice cracks as she tells him she took 2 tests, both positive. For a long moment the room feels airless. Will, usually quick with charm and confidence, is stunned into silence. He paces, runs his hands through his hair, and asks practical questions: how far along, whether she's sure, whether she's seen a doctor, while Dylan fights back tears, interpreting his shock as regret. But beneath the panic, something shifts in him. The reality of becoming a father awakens, a sense of responsibility he didn't know he possessed. Meanwhile, Electra, who had been confidently planning a romantic weekend to solidify her future with Will, senses something is wrong when he cancels their dinner abruptly. She corners him at Forrester Creations, demanding answers. In a raw, unfiltered confrontation, Will admits the truth. Dylan is pregnant, and he intends to stand by her and the baby. The words slice through Electra like glass. She laughs at first, thinking it's a joke, but when she sees the seriousness in his eyes, her composure shatters. She accuses him of choosing obligation over love, of throwing away their future for a mistake. Will insists the baby is not a mistake and says he won't abandon his child the way he once felt abandoned during his own turbulent upbringing. The reference to his complicated family history hits deep, and for a moment Electra sees the boy behind the bravado, but her pride overrides her empathy. Word spreads quickly through Los Angeles' tight-knit elite. At Spencer Publications, whispers fly about Will doing the right thing, while others speculate he's sacrificing true love. Dylan, overwhelmed by sudden scrutiny, becomes the reluctant center of attention. Some admire her courage, others question her timing. Electra, however, refuses to accept defeat. In her mind, Dylan hasn't won, she's trapped Will. Determined to reclaim him, Electra begins subtly undermining Dylan's confidence. She accidentally leaks rumors questioning the paternity timeline, plants seeds of doubt in Will's mind about whether Dylan is ready for motherhood, and positions herself as the sophisticated, stable alternative. But pregnancy changes everything, and Dylan surprises everyone, including herself, by growing stronger. She attends prenatal appointments alone when Will is caught in meetings, yet never complains. She starts envisioning a nursery, imagining a future that once terrified her. When Will finally sees an ultrasound image and hears the baby's heartbeat, his lingering uncertainty dissolves into fierce protectiveness. He publicly announces his commitment to Dylan at a family gathering, stunning Electra and solidifying his choice. The declaration is meant to end the triangle, but instead it ignites it. Humiliated and furious, Electra vows revenge, not just to win Will back, but to make Dylan regret ever stepping into her path. She aligns herself with unlikely allies, digging into Dylan's past, searching for secrets that could fracture Will's trust. Yet each attempt only exposes Electra's desperation. In private moments, she grapples with genuine heartbreak. She truly loved Will, and the knowledge that he chose fatherhood over passion feels like betrayal. As tensions escalate, confrontations become explosive. One heated exchange at Il Giardino draws a crowd when Electra accuses Dylan of manipulating the pregnancy to secure her future. Dylan fires back that Electra never understood what real love looks like. Will intervenes, torn between lingering affection for Electra and loyalty to the mother of his child. The emotional stakes rise further when a minor pregnancy scare sends Dylan to the hospital. Will's fear is palpable. He refuses to leave her side. Electra, witnessing his devotion, realizes the depth of his transformation. The carefree young man she once adored has become a father before the baby is even born. In a moment of vulnerability, Electra confronts her own motivations. Is revenge truly what she wants, or is she fighting to hold on to a version of Will that no longer exists? Still, pride keeps her from backing down. She orchestrates one final gambit, presenting Will with evidence that suggests Dylan once considered moving away without telling him. The partial truth nearly succeeds in shaking his trust, but when confronted, Dylan admits her fear and confusion early in the pregnancy. Her honesty ultimately strengthens their bond. Will chooses transparency over suspicion, declaring that their future will be built on truth. Electra's plan collapses, leaving her isolated. Yet in classic fashion, she refuses to be written off. The love triangle may have exploded, but its aftermath reshapes every character involved. Will's decision proves that responsibility can redefine a man. Dylan's pregnancy becomes not a weapon, but a catalyst for growth. And Electra's heartbreak evolves into a simmering determination that promises future drama. In the glamorous yet unforgiving world of Los Angeles society, nothing stays buried for long, and love rarely follows a simple path. As the baby's due date approaches, alliances shift, rivalries deepen, and the question lingers. Can commitment born from crisis blossom into lasting love, or will Electra's relentless drive tear it all apart? In this sweeping chapter of The Bold and the Beautiful, pregnancy doesn't just change one relationship, it transforms destinies, proving once again that in matters of the heart, every choice carries consequences that ripple far beyond a single moment. As the fallout from Will's decision continues to ripple through Los Angeles, the emotional aftershocks deepen in ways no one anticipated, proving once again why The Bold and the Beautiful remains a masterclass in high-stakes romance and generational drama. In the weeks following his public commitment to Dylan, Will throws himself into preparing for fatherhood with an intensity that surprises even his own family. He begins attending every prenatal appointment, rearranging meetings at Spencer Publications, and even turning down a high-profile overseas expansion opportunity, an unheard-of move for someone raised in the Spencer dynasty. To some, it's admirable. To others, it's reckless. Behind closed doors, senior executives quietly question whether Will is allowing personal matters to cloud his ambition. But for the first time in his life, ambition isn't his driving force, legacy is. The idea of holding his child, of building something stable and lasting, outweighs corporate conquest. Dylan, meanwhile, experiences the complex emotional whirlwind of pregnancy under public scrutiny. Morning sickness, exhaustion, and hormonal surges collide with gossip columns speculating whether Will's devotion is genuine or performative. She tries to ignore the headlines, but when paparazzi photos capture her leaving a medical building with a somber expression, after nothing more than routine blood work, the rumor mill explodes with whispers of complications. Electra, watching from the sidelines, feels a twisted mixture of sympathy and vindication. She never wished harm on the baby, yet she can't deny that any instability in Dylan's pregnancy reopens possibilities in her own heart. Electra's internal battle intensifies. In private moments, she replays memories of her relationship with Will. The spontaneous road trips, the late-night laughter, the way he once said she challenged him intellectually in ways no one else could. She convinces herself that what they shared was deeper than what he has with Dylan. Pregnancy, she believes, is binding him out of duty, not love. Determined to prove it, she shifts tactics from sabotage to seduction. Not physical seduction, but emotional resonance. She positions herself as his confidant again, subtly re-entering his orbit through professional collaboration. When Spencer Publications partners with a fashion tech startup, Electra volunteers to spearhead the integration, knowing it will require close communication with Will. Their meetings are tense but electric. Beneath professional courtesy lies unresolved longing. At one such meeting, as they argue over strategy, an unexpected spark ignites. For a fleeting second, their eyes lock with the intensity of everything unsaid. Will pulls back first, reminding her, and himself, that his focus is his child. Electra smiles coolly, masking the sting, but the moment lingers in both their minds. Dylan senses the shift without concrete evidence. Pregnancy has heightened her intuition, and she notices when Will grows distracted after workdays that involve Electra. Rather than confront him immediately, she wrestles with her insecurity. She fears being perceived as paranoid or ungrateful. But as the baby grows, so does her need for emotional safety. One evening, after Will returns home later than expected, she finally voices her fears. The conversation is raw and unfiltered. Dylan admits she feels like the responsible choice, rather than the passionate one. Will responds with surprising vulnerability, confessing that he is still disentangling what love means to him. He tells her he chose her not solely because of the pregnancy, but because in her quiet strength he sees the foundation of a family. The admission is imperfect yet sincere, and though it doesn't erase her doubts entirely, it strengthens their bond. Electra, however, is not finished. Frustrated that emotional proximity hasn't fractured Will's resolve, she turns to a more calculated plan, one rooted in public perception. She arranges a high-profile charity gala benefiting maternal health initiatives, ensuring Dylan is front and center as guest of honor. On the surface, it appears generous. In reality, Electra intends to expose Dylan to intense scrutiny, believing the pressure will reveal cracks in her composure. The gala becomes a spectacle of glamour and tension. Cameras flash as Dylan, radiant but visibly nervous, delivers a heartfelt speech about unexpected motherhood and resilience. To Electra's surprise, the audience responds with overwhelming support. Social media buzz shifts from skepticism to admiration. Dylan's authenticity resonates, undermining Electra's strategy. Instead of weakening her rival, the event elevates her. Humiliated yet again, Electra confronts a painful truth. Revenge is costing her dignity. In a rare moment of introspection, she confides in a trusted friend that she no longer recognizes herself. The woman who once prided herself on ambition and independence has become consumed by romantic defeat. Yet surrender feels impossible. The idea of watching will build a life with someone else gnaws at her relentlessly. She decides on one final confrontation, not to manipulate but to demand clarity. She invites Will to meet her at the beach where they once planned their future. The setting is deliberate, nostalgic. As waves crash behind them, she asks him point-blank whether he is truly in love with Dylan or merely honoring a promise. Will hesitates, and that hesitation speaks volumes. He admits that love is growing, evolving, but it's different from what he shared with Electra. It's steadier, less fiery but more enduring. The comparison is bittersweet. Electra realizes that she represents passion and possibility, while Dylan represents stability and tomorrow. Meanwhile, the pregnancy takes an unexpected turn when doctors discover a minor, but concerning health marker requiring additional monitoring. Fear grips Will and Dylan alike. In the hospital waiting room, stripped of glamour and rivalry, reality settles heavily upon them. Electra learns of the situation through mutual contacts and, despite everything, chooses compassion. She sends a simple message wishing them strength. The gesture is small yet genuine. For the first time, her actions are not strategic but humane. The medical scare ultimately resolves positively, bringing relief and renewed gratitude. Will emerges from the ordeal even more devoted, recognizing how fragile and precious life truly is. As months pass, preparations for the baby intensify. A nursery is designed with thoughtful care, blending modern elegance with warmth. Will assembles furniture himself, determined to be hands-on. Dylan photographs the process, capturing candid smiles and tender moments. Their relationship, once overshadowed by controversy, begins to resemble something solid. Yet the ghost of the triangle never fully disappears. At industry events, whispers persist about whether Electra will resurface romantically. Some speculate she's moved on. Others sense unfinished business. The climax builds on the night Dylan goes into early labor during a thunderstorm that paralyzes parts of the city. Roads flood, cell service falters, and panic sets in. Will races through chaotic traffic, heart-pounding, determined not to miss the birth. In a twist of fate, Electra, who happens to be nearby, assists in clearing a path and ensuring emergency services reach Dylan in time. It's an act that transcends rivalry. When Will later learns of her involvement, gratitude softens his lingering resentment. The baby is born healthy, a moment that reshapes every dynamic. Holding his child for the first time, Will feels a surge of unconditional love, unlike anything he has known. Tears stream down Dylan's face as she witnesses father and child bond instantly. Electra watches from afar, aware that this chapter has closed definitively. Yet instead of bitterness, she feels unexpected peace. The battle she waged was never truly against Dylan. It was against change. Will's transformation into a father signifies the end of their youthful romance. Accepting that truth frees her to rediscover herself. She channels her ambition back into her career, vowing that her next love will be chosen not from desperation, but from mutual readiness. In the end, pregnancy did more than alter a relationship. It catalyzed growth in all three lives. Will learn that responsibility can coexist with passion. Dylan discovered strength within vulnerability. And Electra confronted the cost of clinging to what no longer serves her. Yet in the ever-evolving world of Los Angeles high society, where alliances shift and hearts remain unpredictable, no resolution is ever truly permanent. As the child grows and new temptations inevitably arise, the echoes of this explosive triangle promise to linger, reminding everyone involved that love, once ignited, never entirely fades. It simply changes form. In the months following the baby's birth, life settles into a fragile rhythm that feels almost too peaceful for the dramatic landscape of the bold and the beautiful. The media frenzy surrounding Will's decision gradually fades, replaced by glossy magazine spreads portraying him as a devoted young father balancing corporate leadership with midnight feedings. Photographs of him cradling his newborn soften his once playboy image, transforming public perception almost overnight. Spencer Publications capitalizes on the shift, branding him as the modern face of legacy and responsibility. Yet behind the curated images lies the reality of sleepless nights, unexpected arguments, and the overwhelming pressure of new parenthood. Dylan, though glowing with maternal pride, struggles in ways she never anticipated. The exhaustion is relentless. Some days she feels invisible, reduced to diapers and feeding schedules while Will juggles meetings and investor calls. She loves her child fiercely, but she misses the version of herself that existed before the pregnancy defined her identity. In quiet moments, she questions whether Will still sees her as a partner or solely as the mother of his child. The vulnerability frightens her because it echoes Electra's earlier accusation that duty, not desire, anchors their relationship. Will senses the strain but misinterprets it at first. Determined to provide security, he doubles down on work commitments, believing financial stability will prove his devotion. Ironically, his absence deepens Dylan's loneliness. Their once tender conversations turn logistical. The nursery, once a symbol of hope, becomes a backdrop to subtle tension. Friends notice the shift. At a small gathering hosted by mutual acquaintances, Dylan's laughter feels forced, while Will appears distracted, checking his phone between toasts. Rumors quietly resurface that the spark between them may already be dimming. Electra, meanwhile, experiences a renaissance of her own. Free from the obsessive cycle of revenge, she channels her energy into expanding her influence within the fashion tech sphere. Invitations flood in for collaborations, and her strategic mind reasserts itself. She begins dating casually, not to provoke Will, but to remind herself she is still desired. One evening at a rooftop launch event, she unexpectedly crosses paths with him. The interaction is cordial but layered with unspoken history. He congratulates her on her latest venture. She compliments him on fatherhood. There is warmth there, but it's tempered by acceptance. Yet as they part, both carry a flicker of nostalgia that neither fully acknowledges. The real turning point comes when Dylan confronts the quiet cracks in her relationship. After a particularly exhausting week, she admits to Will that she feels like they are drifting into roles, rather than living as lovers. The confession catches him off guard. He assumes stability equaled happiness. The argument that follows is intense but necessary. Dylan insists she doesn't want to be chosen only once. She wants to be chosen every day. Will, shaken, realizes that commitment is not a single grand declaration. It's a continuous act. He promises to recalibrate, to prioritize presence over perception. As the coming day unfolded with deceptive calm across Los Angeles, the characters moved through their routines with the fragile perfection of people pretending their worlds were formally cracking, because although Taylor had induced herself that ending effects with Cleric was the only responsible choice, the silence that followed felt heavier than any battle she'd ever survived, and when she sat alone in her office reviewing patient lines she slightly read, her mind kept drifting. Back to the look on Deacon's face when she told him farewell, a look that visited her not because it prayed remission, but because it accepted loss, and acceptance, Taylor realized, was occasionally more ruinous than resistance. Meanwhile, Cleric himself plodded through the morning at Il Giardino, snapping at workers and losing track of orders as Sheila floated near playing the part of the devoted woman. With unsettling enthusiasm, touching his arm just a little too frequently, reminding him of plans they'd made together with an agreeableness that felt more like a warning than affection, and although Deacon tried to match her smile, his eyes kept drifting toward the door as if awaiting Taylor to walk in and tell him she'd changed her mind. A stopgap that faded with each passing nanosecond. Sheila noticed everything, the distraction, the pressure, the guilt radiating off him, and while she laughed it off intimately she entered every inconsistency, every vacillation, because Sheila Carter no way ignored her instincts, and they were screaming now louder than ever that Cleric was slipping down, egging her to still make another call latterly that autumn, her voice low and sharp as she demanded answers about Taylor Hayes' movements, her schedule, her emotional state, determined to confirm what she formerly suspected. Across city, Will Spencer set up himself. Unfit to concentrate on work, the image of Dylan zipping down from him the night before eating at his heart, because commodity about her fear had felt particular, nearly familiar, and despite warnings from Katie to stay out of complicated situations, Will couldn't shake the feeling that walking down from Dylan now would be a mistake he'd lament ever. So he returned to the alley behind Il Giardino latterly that day under the guise of grabbing lunch, only to find Dylan sitting on the check clinging her jacket tightly, her pride eventually cracking as prostration caught her defenses, and though she claimed she didn't need saving, the gashes in her eyes betrayed a verity she could no longer hide, leading Will to gently offer help without conditions, a kindness that left Dylan pulsing with both gratefulness and terror, because accepting his help meant risking exposure. At Forrester Creations, Brooke and Katie continued still making together fractions of Dylan's history, and the more they uncovered, the clearer it came that this wasn't just a story of bad luck, but of deliberate exposure, of someone who had walked down from stability for reasons far deeper than pride. And when Brooke eventually uncovered a document linking Dylan to a decision made times ago involving the Spencer family, her breath caught, realizing the fallout from this disclosure would be far more explosive than she originally imagined. Back in Taylor's office, Ridge returned. Unannounced, his concern apparent as he noticed the strain etched into her face, and though he comforted himself that steering Taylor down from Deacon had been the right move, guilt dallied beneath his certainty, because seeing Taylor's pain forced him to defy the uncomfortable verity that guarding someone occasionally meant breaking their heart.